Good afternoon, everyone. I know my sister is bursting with pride at her sons being able to articulate their feelings about their grandfather. But I know as an uncle, I'm very proud of him. I'm also proud of my father's players, and I'm glad they went over the 5-minute because they provide the color that you need to know about the big house games. The stories that he has been able to, they've been able to really talk to you about. Before I share my thoughts with you about my father, I just want to express our gratitude as a family from my mother, Clarence, my sister, Lisa, for all the heartfelt sympathy, messages, condolences that we've received, the phone calls that we received. I'm telling you, I've been in the business world before, but I've never heard a phone ring so much for 3 to 4 days in my life. But in the stories that people want to tell and share with us, we really appreciate it. It will be a time in our life that we will always remember. So from the bottom of my heart, I just want to thank everyone who has touched us. And I just want to thank everyone who took the time to come out today and share my father's celebration of life and to support our family. I am Clarence King's only biological son. But I'm not his only son. I think you see that up here on the dais. Lisa is his only biological daughter, but she's not his only daughter. We're very much aware of that, always have been. As I got older, people would ask me, are you jealous of that situation where your father has these very close relationships with other men your age and older than you? And I look at them like they're nuts. Why would I be jealous of that? My father opened a door to me that very few kids have the opportunity to experience. As a young kid, if you have any love and appreciation for sports, to have a father who is a coach is just a great experience. Some of these players are my babysitters. Some of these players, my mother just found out, abused me. They went from thumping me on the head to punching me in the arm. And I never told my father about it, never told my mother about it. Why? Because it was familial love. It was to me just a big brother trying to toughen us up. I think Kevin Wallace, who's here today, my father's closest friend, Uncle Tiny, experienced some of the same type of abuse, right, Kevin? But it just made us that much tougher. And we knew it came from some of them, love. Others, well, whatever. Caroline Lattimore, she's one of my doctors, Caroline Lattimore, we call her Judy. She's one of my father and mother's daughters. She asked me a question. How would my father want to be remembered? I want to paint a picture for you, because he means many things to many different people. But I want you to think of Big House as Big House, the lover of life. My father loved life. He loved to go places. He loved to meet people. He has this spirit of a gypsy. Lisa has that same spirit. My Aunt Lenny, who's not here to hear this right now, she's indisposed, I guess, also has that spirit. They're kindred souls. They need contact. They need to reach out and touch people. And because of it, their lives have been so enriched. Dad, as many of you are aware, probably the last 3 years, you can see the gradual decline. But it never stopped him from going out on a daily basis in the Winston-Salem community or to big events. He loved going to big events, like the NCAA basketball tournament, the All-Star game. The NBA would invite him. Russ Granick, I always thank him, and I will thank him in a letter, because the last time I had a extended experience with my father alone and quality time with him was this February. We went to the NBA All-Star game in Denver, Colorado. That was a special time for me because I could see that Dad was coming to to the end of his life. One time we went out to get something to eat. You know, Denver is called a Mile High City. It was the first day there. It was a difficult adjustment for him. And we might have walked 20 paces before we had to go back to the hotel. So I would go out and just get food for him and bring it back into the room. After the day he adjusted, we went to the All-Star game. He enjoyed it. And when I took him to the airport, I hugged him. And he was carted away in a wheelchair. And I think his players, recognizing how proud a man he was, a very tough-minded taskmaster, but he dealt with his situation in the way you think he would. He dealt with it with dignity. You know, the Pope who recently died has been characterized and been applauded for the way he handled death. And I think my father handled death and the possibility of death as well as anyone could. Lisa, also, because Dad wanted not to stay cloistered in his room or at home, he wanted to go out and meet with people. Went to the NCAA Final Four this year, where I know most people in this room who are Carolina fans are happy. She had an opportunity, along with Warren, his grandson, to spend extended time with Papa Gaines. And I know that meant a lot to him. Dad liked to go to Winston Lake Golf Course. Not to golf, but to socialize, to play Tom. He liked to go to Chuck's barbershop, not to get a haircut, but to hang out, find what was going on, just to feel the pulse of the community. He was a lover of life. He was a lover of his family. And I don't mean just his immediate family, but his extended family. I'm going to say this twice. I want you to listen to this. The best definition that I've ever heard about love, I read about love, comes from a book called The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck. Defines love as this: the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another spiritual growth and development. I want you to wrap yourself around that quote. Just think about it. For you who have had time to share and have interactions with my father, think if he met that standard, met that test of love in your mind. Again, I'm going to repeat. Love is the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth and development. Lisa said to me the other day, and she was getting a little bit emotional. She said, this is my buddy. She had a very, very close relationship with my father. And to understand it, I think you have to go back to his parents. Before I share that story, I want to just tell you about one name that hasn't been mentioned that this family knows. His mother and his Aunt Nancy, Clarence Edward. That's what they called him. He was called Clarence Edward by them. But his mother was a giver. She was a very loving woman. And my father was the only child. And he was spoiled rotten, from what I understand. They doted on him religiously, because this was the only child, and Aunt Nancy did not have any children. So this was their life. He knew he was loved, just as we knew we were loved. Not only from my father, but from my mother. This is about my father, but I got to tell you this. My mother loves to tell the story of how she always rocked me before we went to school. And that's the kind of family that we were brought up in. What Lisa said was, I know that Daddy has my back, even though I don't need him to have my back. That basically is the same thing I just said in M. Scott Peck's definition right there. And there's a lot of you who knew that my daddy had your back, and sometimes he did have to have your back. But with that quote that Lisa basically expressed, that saying, it just shows that she had a comfort and stability that was provided in our family from the way we were raised and because of the love and trust that we had in our family. He had a loveless team, like no other coach, because we have coaches in here today, and coaches develop a special bond with their team. He had the opportunity, I'd say about 10 years ago, when the Hornets were in Charlotte, to speak to their team. I think that was when they had Alonzo Mourning on the team and Larry Johnson. I think they had a little bit of internal strife. And the reason I came up with this love concept, because it's true, for one, but he really believed in it. And what did he talk to the Charlotte Hornets about? He talked about loving one another. And you got to deal with pro athletes. Think of Michael Jordan and Dennis Rodman. The Chicago Bulls won a world championship. You think they love one another? They're able to respect one another and what they're able to do. But in a collegiate setting, to truly have a great team, and where he was coming from, that you build this bond, you build this trust in each other, and to truly take it to the next level, you got to feel that your teammate has your back and they loves you. That's how much he felt about that. And another story I'd like to just share with you is one of his players, a player who died, I feel, tragically at a young age, Mike Robinson. And it goes like this. My grandfather died about when I was in high school. And our grandparents on both sides of the family meant a lot to us. Lester and Olivia on my father's side. When Lester died, we took some of his stuff back. Lisa would like to get some things, and I took some things that really meant a lot to me. One of them was an overcoat, big overcoat. Came back one day from college, I think, and said, I went to look for grandfather's overcoat. He said he gave it to Mike Robinson. I said, why? He said, because he didn't have an overcoat, and it was cold. That's just a simple story. I'm sure his players can relate to other things. But that's the kind of love that he had, that he would give his father's coat that meant a lot to him, meant a lot to his son, to one of his players. My father was a lover of people. He was a social animal. If you try to call our house sometime before phones had call waiting, you get a busy signal. He's always on the telephone. If you call our house with call waiting, you get a ring because they don't know how to use call waiting. But he wanted to reach out and share his life, and he always wanted to know what his players were doing. My nephew talked about my father's, I think there are two maxims that relate to my father. One of them is the golden rule. But I like to think of the golden rule in this way, and best interpret it. And I do this for some of his players. Treat others in ways that you're willing to be treated in the same exact situation. But some of his players are probably thinking, he didn't follow the golden rule when he came to coaching. He treated me this way, that way. But you have to remember, my father was a great athlete, so he'd been on the other side. So he just treated you the way some of his other coaches treated him. So he'd been in that same situation. And my father was also a giver and not a taker. And as most givers, they get that much more back in return, thousandfold. And I think we see that not only today, but throughout his life. The thing about my father, about his sense of humor, is this. As he got older, I would always kid him about his slower gait, how he's struggling with a little bit of things. He used to always come with this line. As you are now, so once was I. As I am now, you will surely be. He'd always repeat that to me. So where did this come from? So one day I got on the internet, typed it in, It's an epitaph that goes back, I know, at least to the 1700s, and probably further back than that. My mother told me he actually got it from a gravestone in Duke, Kentucky, but you'll see it in different cemeteries on different gravestones all over this country. But here's how it actually reads in different derivations. Remember, friend, as you walk by, as you are now, so once was I. As I am now, you will surely be. Prepare thyself to follow me. Basically, I hope I get the opportunity to have that limp, to have that long life. Everybody asks us as a family what they can do for us. How can we help you? How can we help you through these tough times? One, prayer. Pray for our family. Pray for our Father's Spirit. Because I think that his legacy, if your prayers can endure in generations to come, those lessons be passed on to the coaches, to the people that he impacted, their kids as well. Another thing I think you can do. He wrote a book. He wrote a book with Clint Johnson. They call me Big House. It chronicled his life. And he spent the last years of his life ensuring that this book would come out and tells the story. I asked Clint the other day, I was curious, how many books have been sold? I'm not going to mention the number, but it's not enough. I want to encourage everyone in this room to buy the book. They call me Big House. And if you can't buy it, go to the library and read it. It's an important book. And I don't say that just as a son. I'm probably one of my father's toughest critics, but I was very proud of that book. Because it really just traces from a sociological standpoint, the history of black college athletics, specifically in the basketball arena. Stephen A., you here, you got a form, ESPN, tell people to get that book. It's an important book. Here's something I want you all to do as well. The Winston-Salem Journal and WXII have websites, and you're allowed to go on there, click, and tell your story, tell your feelings about my father. I'd like you all to do that. The reason, it's a permanent record. People put in from now on Clarence games, they'll be directed to those sites through Yahoo, through Google. We live in an internet age. I'm going to read every one of those tributes to him. I've already read a lot of them, and they mean a lot to me. I'm sure they'll mean a lot to our family. My mother's sitting here saying time out, but this last point, this is what my father would really want to say right now, with this many people in the house, that would be important to him. Write a check to the CE Games Endowment Fund. That school was very important for him, important to our family. He would want me to say that. That's the authentic voice that he had. Write that check. Why? Because the true way to ensure his legacy is to make sure young people can continue to get a quality education. Because what my father was, and will remain in our memories, I hope, is an educator, a teacher, and a coach. Thank you.